Okay, so welcome everybody to our Embracing Menopause series. My name's Jule. I will be your host. We've got guest speakers Carole LeBlanc and Sandra Pickrell Baker. And I'm going to ask you to turn off your cameras now so we can focus on each of the speakers. Thank you very much. And then as people come, I will take care of that. And Marie, I can still see you. There we go. Thank you, darling. So I'm going to start just by talking about how this came to be. So I recently went through menopause and I felt pretty alone in that. And I started reaching out and talking to the women in my life about their journeys. I have a lot of younger friends and I'm a little bit young on the younger end of the spectrum. So I didn't know too many people. I talked to my doctor, didn't get a lot of help there. And so anyway, just by talking, we started having these beautiful conversations. And then Carole, sorry, I oscillate between calling you Carole and Carole.
Both work.
You had sent me a Zoom link or made me aware of this Indigenous-centered menopause Zoom series that this is actually inspired by. So there is something that's actually going on hosted by Indigenous people and elders. They have elders on to speak and experts. Anyway, I will offer that link if anyone would like it. And it's an ongoing monthly series and it's really been eye-opening for me. So that inspired this as well as my own journey. Yeah. So please, I think I have all of your email addresses. If I sent you the Zoom link, then from my email, julesessions@gmail.com, then I'll have yours. If someone else passed you the Zoom link, you can put your email address in the chat and then I'll make sure to send you the link on that. Because I have Indigenous ancestry. And so it was really informative for me in particular and my journey. So I decided to get these women in my life together and we had our own little Zoom call and we said, you know, I'd like to do something along those lines, talking about our story, sharing our narrative and see what comes out of that. And so we had this vision of like, just sharing our stories, but also like any tips and tricks or ideas that we had to help with some of the symptoms, as well as, you know, maybe debunking some things, and also opening up the platform to other people to share your stories. If you are here and you've been through menopause or you're going through it and you would like to be a speaker on this series, I'm planning on doing it once a month. So I'll invite you to just reach out to me. If you're interested in doing that, because that's what this is about, just like sharing our stories, basically. Although next month we do have an expert coming on, Sarah Bailey, who is a naturopathic doctor, and she specializes in menopause and perimenopause. Okay, so I think I'm done for that. I will introduce now Carole, and so for those of you who have just joined, Carole's going to speak for about 15 to 20 minutes. This is not going to be a hard time. And then when she's done, we're going to have a little break and go to the toilet, get a drink, whatever. And that will be the time to put questions in the chat. Just write them in the chat. And if you have questions that come up, I mean, you can put them in the chat. Is that okay with you, Carole, or is that going to distract you?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I'll do my best.
I'll keep track of the questions. I'll do that for you, and then she can speak to them, answer them, or if you have anything you want to say, you can certainly speak up after Carole's finished talking. Just be mindful of the time. That's all. Okay, so I'll introduce Carole just by how I know her. I met Carole when I was in my teen years. She was a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and I always thought she was so cool. And I don't know if you remember meeting me at that time. Do you? I think we did.
No,
yeah.
too much partying back then, I think.
And then I moved away when I was 18, and I didn't come back till I was 44 to Nova Scotia. And then I saw Carole teaching. I met you at the Shambhala school because I was substitute teaching there, and you were teaching French. And I remembered you because you look exactly the same. And I was like, Carole! And we became friends. And that's how I know
I'm
Carole.
so happy for that.
Me too. So I will leave you the floor now, Carole. And if you need anything, just shout. Okay.
All right. Yeah, if I'm struggling, bail me out.
Would you like me to turn off my camera and just, or
No, I actually rather look at you than have my big face in front.
all righty. I think you can also
That's
turn
perfect.
off your
Yes.
view of your face.
Yes, I can. Sweet. Thank you, Jule. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. So before I saw that link to the Indigenous Centered Menopause webinar that was going on, Jule had already planned a celebration to celebrate her year, like 1 year free of your moon time, to celebrate coming into menopause. And that brought me such joy, Jule, that you were doing that for yourself. Of course, it was coming at a time where I was really just questioning and embracing this change in my life. So I'm 53. Menopause started probably when I was 50, 51. So I'm a few years in, but was just really like, instead of listening to the stories of like, oh, I'm getting old and I'm getting this and I'm getting that. And I just wanted to really like go into myself and really like embrace this change. So it got me curious. It got me thinking of things that I'd heard of, things that I'd read, the croning, the celebrations that women would have for each other in this really powerful time in our lives. So yes, I was definitely overjoyed for you to say, hey, I'm going to celebrate menopause. And I'm like, yes, because that's how I was feeling. Like, I was asking myself, like, what does it look like for me to celebrate this change in my life? And so being naturally curious, I love these conversations. And also the reactions that, certain people like don't want to talk about it at all, or they kind of blush and change the subject, or other people are just like, oh, more than happy to share their stories, because I don't think it's been something, hey, what do you think about menopause? It's not really something that's a lot of people talk about. And happily, we're seeing it more and more, like CBC News doing stories on menopause. Oprah Winfrey, I hear, doing stories on menopause, which is great, because I think it's time for us to come together and share, because I don't feel like many of us, our moms, our aunties, it's not something that was really talked about for a really long time. So not to say that things got lost, but maybe we're just like remembering, and we're here to open these conversations up and, to share them with our families. Like to share them with our sons, our husbands, our partners, our nieces, so that younger women are, will be like, oh, wow, we just get better with age. And, all these lines here, these are stories and adventures. They're not something I want to cover up, so maybe getting rid of those old stories, that, oh, you're growing old, so you're weak, or you're your body's going to break down. Like that never really resonated with me. So I've kind of like, when I hear stuff like that, what that says to me is like, oh, actually, no, I want to be stronger. And I feel like I'm the strongest that I've been, like mentally, physically, you know, after 50, like I've done a lot of work to let go of my insecurities. I've done a lot of healing work as well, which is, you know, I think that's an important piece for us to look at stuff that we've been suppressing, or to talk about, or to get help with trauma that we might be, you know, experiencing or still hanging on to. I think that really plays into how, like, our moon cycle, giving birth, for example, can be quite difficult if we have some unresolved trauma in our body, which is something I heard from an elder recently in the Indigenous Centered Menopause webinar. And I was like, oh, you know, that really made sense to me somehow. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, our body's holding all this stuff and it's going through change. So that change is not necessarily going to come easy. If we have, you know, if we're trying to pack stuff on top of what's already there. So those things have come up recently that I've just been really curious and, you know, talking with different people about, you know, and ways that we can help each other out by just being open and honest with ourselves and with each other. Whew. All right. Wow. I just went into this. Sorry. I'll call it menopause brain just for fun, because I like my menopause brain. I'm just going to look at my notes here so I can kind of hone in. So I'll start with my moon time, or I'll continue with my moon time. I was quite young. I think I was 11 when I got my first period. And really, I was just kind of guided to the closet where the pads were kept, and that was about it. And so, yeah, I figured it out. You know, talked about moon time with my, you know, teenage friends at school. I had it pretty good, I've got to say. I didn't really have a lot of pain. Yeah, it was a pretty gentle moon cycle for me most of my life, as much as I can remember. And then I started, kind of just questioning, like hearing all these stories or hearing friends say, oh, it's gross or it's dirty and it's this and it's that. And like, okay, sure, but that never really resonated with me. And as I got older, I started to kind of explore that a little more. So I started, you know, asking the universe, reading different books, asking women friends, you know. And I've come to discover that, it's a natural, beautiful thing that the young girl turns into a woman, you know, it's a rite of passage. But yeah, we don't, or I say we don't, like in my life, like that wasn't celebrated. Like none of my friends got cheesecake at a big party when they started their moon time. It was really like, oh, we like don't talk about it, or, you know, it's gross and it's dirty. And so it's really interesting kind of looking to see out in the world, different cultures and how they embrace this rite of passage for young women. So it really shifted with me. I really started to honor my moon time and my cycle. I'd read a really nice piece about moon time, like a time for quiet reflection, a time for like vision and prayer. And something that I really loved was it was described as like we can take a bit of the suffering of the world and move it through us, through our cycle, for it to be cleansed. So that was really powerful for me to read stuff like that. And it was really helpful for me to really just embrace that time. It's like, oh, of course, like my body's cleaning itself. Like, wow, what a wonderful thing this is, this body, you know? It was super interesting. So I have a teenage son. He would really, when he was little, he would really react to my moon time. So my powerful energy in that time, he would really like he would confront me and maybe be a little aggressive with me. And so I picked up on that because it would happen, like he would say stuff like, oh, I kind of feel weird and I don't know why. And the next day my period would start. I was just like, oh, wow, like just really seeing, like once I was open to seeing how powerful this energy is, I started working with that. So I would have conversations with him about my moon time and we would give each other that space. And I would try not to bite back if he was biting. So that was good practice. And really just, yeah, it was really helpful for me to share with him so that he could have a better understanding, you know, that we shared, you know, how we were feeling and what was coming up. A good friend of mine had shared that on our moon time, our energy goes counterclockwise. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So naturally our energy goes with the sun, so it goes sunwise. So when I was on my moon time, I took a pendulum, sure enough, sunwise, sunwise, sunwise. Oh, it's going the opposite way. The pendulum actually turns the opposite way. And how it was explained to me, like this was in conversation about butting heads with my son, you know, and this energy. So this is how this conversation came up. And how it was explained to me was that men don't have the reference to that energy going the other way. So it's a big energy and it can throw off their energy, because he would say, like, I don't know where it's coming from, but I know I'm feeling this. So it was so interesting. I learned so much. I also had a business partner who, sure enough, every month would pick a fight with me. And then I put two and two together quite easily because I had experienced it with my son. And so I just had that conversation with him. I just like called him out. I'm like, hey, okay, every month when I'm on my moon time, you pick a fight with me. And he was like, oh, really? And then I talked to him about this energy shift and how powerful and strong this energy can be for certain people, not everyone, I'm sure, but, and then it stopped, like, or if, you know, the following month he tried to pick a fight with me, I just shut him down by saying, I'm on my moon time, and he would just leave. So he would, you know, we wouldn't have those fights anymore. So super interesting stuff around moon time. And yeah, I'm still learning, you know, people are still sharing things about moon time, but yeah, I'm really happy that I came to that place that I could really embrace that quiet time hearing about moon lodges and moon tents where the women were cared for, the family was cared for, the women would, they would go and they would bead and they would craft and they would rest and be nourished. I'm like, wow, dreamy. Like, let's bring that back for the young women now, But that's a whole lot of changes in our whole capitalist society that we need to change first, I think. So interesting. All right. I think that's it. My moon time finished. And that was also a joyful time. It's like, okay, like it's a whole new time without the moon time. So this is where I'm at. A few years in to menopause. Definitely had the hot flashes, night sweats, have to wake up and towel down and then like switch my spot on the bed so it would be dry. A friend had suggested clary sage, so I just got a little bottle of clary sage essential oil. Would just put some on my wrist, on my pillow. That was really helpful for me. And I want to say that probably lasted like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, maybe, like the night sweats. Hot flashes, I still get them every once in a while, but they're not as intense. And I really try to yield into them and just kind of, I know that they pass. So I just do my best and embrace that heat. If you think of like when we have a fever, it's our body's way of cleansing itself. So, hey, I'm not having my moon cycle. So I'm having these hot flashes. Like this heat is helping to cleanse my body. That's my take on it. Yeah, and a year ago in March, I started cold dipping with my beautiful friend Jule. And yeah, what a game changer that has been for my life. Just you can't be anywhere else. And I'm so grateful for the medicine of the cold. So from hot flashes to cold dips. Oh yeah, definitely a good combination. For me, it really helped. I think I dropped like 15 pounds in like 6 months. So it really sped up my metabolism. So I know that that's been definitely a positive impact on my physical and mental health pertaining to menopause too. Like sleep, like I've never slept so well after a cold dip. It's quite amazing because, yeah, I have been sleep deprived at times, waking up, kicking the blankets off, putting the blankets back on, kicking the blankets off. So thank you, Jule, for getting me to come jump in the cold water with you. I try to go at least once a week. Last week, I think I went 4 times. Like, I just kind of really listen to, it's 10 minutes away. I can jump into the lake or the ocean. So it's easy to fit that into my day. And the days that I actually I'm like, oh, I'm not really feeling it. Those are always the best dips. I just get myself into that water and I was like, totally just changes my day around, whether I'm blue or just blah, feeling a little blah. The cold water really helps. Really, really, really helps. Oh my. I'm just looking at my notes here.
There's a question about how long you stay in.
Oh, anywhere from 3 to like 7 minutes. That first time, Jule, I was like so shocked that we were in there for 7 minutes. I really, really, really listen to my body when I'm in the cold water. Jule, you had shared that, about adrenal fatigue, like staying in the cold too long can have the opposite effect.
Mhm.
So I feel like I've done that. So I've stayed in a little too long and then came home and like needed to crash out as opposed to being energized. So that was my cue that I really need to pay attention. And when my body says, yeah, you're good, you just get out. It doesn't matter if it's a minute or 5. Oh, what else? Oh, I have an interesting story. So when I first started, when I'm going through menopause, I'm like kind of cranky. This is like, yeah, it was probably like 6 or 8 months in. Moody. Well, my son was going through puberty at the same time. What a coincidence. And wow, like, again, grateful for those conversations. So we just both sat and we both realized that we're going through very similar things, all these emotions, not knowing what to do with them, where they're coming from. It was so cool. Like, it really actually made the house way more peaceful after these conversations. Because it was like, oh my gosh, we can totally relate with each other right now because both of us are going through these major changes, like physical, emotional. So again, encouraging everyone, like, talk to your partners, talk to your kids. Like, even if you can't explain what's going on, you're just letting them know something's up, And it opens it up for them to share maybe stuff that's coming up for them, like we're doing here. Like we're doing here. How am I doing for time?
You're at 20 minutes.
Okay. I guess like I'm drinking rose hip tea, like rose hip, particularly for me, like something told me, yeah, rose hip is like good medicine for you. So I'm drinking rose hip tea, and part of the Indigenous centered menopause series, there was a woman, there were a few different medicines talked about: sage tea, Labrador tea, rose hip was another one. So when I heard that, I was like, oh yes, I remembered. Yes, rose hip really calls to me. So I encourage everyone to listen to your intuition, listen to your body, chat with your naturopath or homeopath or herbalist. I had a really interesting conversation with a homeopath today, and we were talking about hormones. And she was talking about like, oh yeah, the doctor, Western doctors will just prescribe hormones, and there's not much that's been studied in regards to women, menopause, women's issues. There are some things, but not many. And so she's like, oh yeah, well, it's not hormones. So this is, I'm just sharing her, what she shared with me. She's like, your hypothalamus gland is what controls your hormones. And that's in your brain. So she was like, again, like I started saying, what's weighing us down? What trauma are we hanging on to? So her perspective was definitely like, yes, it's a hormonal shift, but it's not with hormones. Our brain looks after our hormones and sending those hormones there. So maybe exploring, yeah, I'm still like processing what she said to me, and I'm definitely curious and interested to read a bit more about that, and how one, can I just tell my brain, okay, brain, can you please regulate my hormones? But yeah, maybe, not being weighed down and going into ourselves. There was a beautiful grandmother who shared that piece about like, oh wow, like it's a whole new time to come into our personal power, a time to really get to know ourselves. It changes, our role changes in this transition period, Oh, I love it. I'm so happy to be here and to be sharing all this with all of you. uh, I wrote down your body image. It's taken me years and years to finally see the beautiful me that I am when I look in the mirror. So, wow. Yeah. I'm going to keep working on that. So if y'all want to join me with that and seeing your beautiful bodies in the mirrors, whatever shape, size, form, please join me. Love, gentleness. Yeah. And really, for me, I'm just happy to be in a place where I'm curious enough when things come up that I just I like feeling them. I like just surrendering. And like everything, they move through me, They move through me. Yeah, I think wow. I didn't realize I had so much to say. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carole.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored. I was actually really surprised that I volunteered to come and do this.
And do it first as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah,
None of us
it's
wanted to go
really
first.
yeah. I just wanted to get it over with.
Yeah, you did a great job. Wonderful.
Kidding.
So, if you're done, then we'll take a little break, and if anyone could reflect on what Carole said here, and I know some questions came up while you were talking. If anyone's got any other questions or anything they'd like to speak to about what Carole said, we'll return after 3 minutes from now. And it's 8:07, so at 8:10, you can take a pee break and get whatever you need, and then we'll meet back in a few minutes. And write your questions in the chat, or if you want to speak, you can write that too in the chat, and then we can talk. I'm just gonna go to the toilet.
Just a couple of questions in the chat, Jule.
Oh, yeah? Okay. And if anyone wanted to put their email address, if I
Yes, so
don't
somebody's
have,
at the top.
right, I got that one, Julie.
Okay,
I wrote
Julie
that
Ann Lee.
down.
Okay.
Julie Ann Lee. Yeah. Awesome. Where you source the tea. Lots of questions about cold dipping. Maybe we should have a whole Zoom call on cold dipping.
That'll be your next one.
Yeah. Aw. Aw. Lots of love for Carole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aw. Beautiful. Carole, are you still here? No. I mean, I can speak to the cold dipping. Carole, are you with us? She might still be on a break. I only see one question.
There was the sage hip erosive tea and then places for cold dipping.
You, wow, you're awesome. Thank you. So Carole can, when she gets back, she can talk about where she sourced the rose hip and the
Sage tea. Yeah.
There you are. Hi, darling. Did you see the questions in the chat? There's where did you source the rose hip and the sage tea?
I did. So sage, I smudged with sage. So I've made tea with white buffalo sage, prairie sage that friends had gifted me. Sage is really strong. So a little goes a long way, and sage can also be a diuretic, like it can really clean you out. So if someone's being called to try I'd say try a very mild sage tea that you would make. And I don't see why you couldn't use like fresh sage from the grocery store if you wanted, I've made tea with that as well. And it is a little lighter than the other sage that I've tried.
Well, there's like food grade sage is different from the sage that we burn for smudging.
Okay, yeah. The rose hip tea, I stumbled across it at the bulk barn for like crazy, like $2.50 for a box of rose hip hibiscus tea. It comes from Germany. Super cheap, 20 tea bags for like seriously $2.50. I do want to collect some rose hips and dry them and make my own, because that's really something that I'm being called to do. Out of all the things that I've heard, that's the one that really is like, yeah, that one's for you. So I'm going to trust my intuition.
There's another question in here, Carole. When do you dip? Do you do it once or hot, cold? Where are some good spots close to Halifax that makes it easy to get in and out? I was saying when you were away, we should just maybe have a Zoom call about cold dipping and menopause.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Maybe we can start the menopause cold dipping group.
Oh yeah, there's most of our group, I would say, are older people. A lot of us. Yeah.
So I've been going to Chocolate Lake. I can get there in the water and back in half an hour. I live near the Commons, so I'm pretty close. I go in at the Dingle often with the group dip. I really love the ocean and the salt water. I was in at Crystal Crescent Beach the other day, Black Point Beach, Hubbard's Beach. Yeah, the lakes are starting to get a little warm, so the ocean is a little more like refreshing for me. So that's
warm.
where, yeah, warm. yeah, like 5 degrees. And I find the cold dips easier than the cold shower, I gotta say. I do the cold shower at the end of my shower, but I don't last very long.
It's awful. Yeah, rooibos tea.
Nice. I've had a few women share with me as well that limiting their caffeine and alcohol has helped reduce the hot flashes. Maybe that's why I'm just like soaking them up, because I love coffee. But that's definitely something that's been shared.
Cold showers are garbage. That's Abigail. Hi, Abigail. She's in our cold dipping group.
Nice.
Abigail, we are, oops, am I still recording? Yeah, we're recording this. So I will make the recording available and to everyone. And if I don't have your email address, just make sure that you put it in the chat. Alrighty, thank you so much, Carole. Thank you everybody for your questions and your comments. And I didn't see that anyone wanted to speak to anything, so we'll just move forward, I guess, with Sandra. All right, thank you. So just to let you know, it's 8:15, but just let it free flow, freestyling here. So would you like me to turn off my camera? Would you prefer that, Sandra?
No, no, I need a face to look at for sure.
Need a face to look at. All right. So we can stay here and hang out with you.
Thank you. So I'm Sandra Pickrell Baker, and
oh wait, oh sorry, I wanted to say how I knew you. Can I? Sorry. So I know Sandra. I met Sandra, such a special woman, and I'm so glad to know you. I met her in November at a retreat, and we bonded at the retreat with our circle of sisters, and we have met up several times since November because there's something really special in that group, and we just did another retreat a couple weeks ago, and we're looking forward to continuing to work together and share our gifts. Yeah, so I'm very, very happy that you're here and honored that you're going to share your story with us. You're a special person. Thank you.
Same to you. So my menopause story isn't typical. I don't think it's as abnormal as you might think. I got sick when I was 17 and lost my first ovary when I was 19 and had a complete hysterectomy. So my other ovary, my tubes, my uterus, everything was removed after 5 surgeries when I was 23. So I went into menopause. David Suzuki called it premature castration. At 23, the day after surgery, I had my first hot flash. I thought I must had gotten an infection or something. I'd never been so hot, so fast in my life. So I was started on hormone replacement therapy right away, even though I had a cousin who died of ovarian cancer, and my family history for breast cancer is my dad's side is all ovarian cancer. My mother's side, all the women have breast cancer. So I've been blessed that I'll be 63 this year. I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 40 years. And I've not had, I go for regular mammograms and all of that, but so far, so good. I don't have a choice. One of the challenges, and I use naturopath, I use homeopath, I exercise, I do all of the things that would be recommended, and I still need pharmaceutical intervention. So my line is, you have to do what you have to do for you, not for anybody else. At 17, I had to go for biopsies every 6 weeks. And at one point, I was trying to think about this the last couple of days. I think it was when the Dixon building was being built and the colposcopy clinic, the biopsy clinic, was moved, and we had to walk through the boiler room at the VG to get to the clinic. And I can remember being 17 and thinking, this is where they put women to cut out pieces of their wombs. And it just, in that moment, the shame that I felt of being a woman who needed to go and do this. And then to have the male resident, or I don't know if he was an OBGYN or not, tell me that this won't hurt any more than a bad period pain, with no comprehension that period pain could make me drop to my knees, that women pass out from period pains. I wanted to say, you sit here, I'll cut a piece of your testicles, because it's not going to hurt worse than bad period pain. And then we'll have a conversation. So even as a young woman, I guess I was the critical feminist theorist I was going to become. I do think those experiences led me to what I do now and who I am as a woman, and the understanding of the value that is placed on us because we can reproduce. And when we can no longer reproduce or are unable to reproduce, how that value is diminished. I can honestly say that I was called an it after my hysterectomy, the same way you would for a dog or a cat, referred to an animal that's been spayed or neutered as an it. I had somebody tell me that I got my children the easy way by adopting them. So there's lots of places where this lack of comprehension, and not just men, but women as well, that we really need to pay attention to our bodies and hold each other up in a way that historically, now I've come to understand that, yeah, there was lots of reasons why I killed the part of myself that was female, but I don't think it was just about my personal history. I think globally, I think on a mass level, we are denying the part of ourselves that is feminine, that is soft, that is fragile, in a world that doesn't value that, doesn't value, or the narrative has been that it's not valued. I think there is a change coming. I couldn't find any help for the amount of symptoms I was having at 23, 24, 30. No libido, weight gain, inflammation everywhere. They thought I had fibromyalgia. I was so inflamed. I didn't. I had a low estrogen. And all of these things, there was no one person that had the answer. So I saw different naturopaths. I saw homeopaths. I saw acupuncturists, osteopaths, massage therapy, and my GP. I did a hormone identical therapy. I've done numerous things to navigate this. And I can say that at 63, I am still having hot flashes and night sweats. If I don't, and believe me, I'm on a very low dose of estrogen, but I take maca every day. I don't drink. I have coffee once in a while. I have one coffee a day. All of these things that we have to pay attention to are for our bodies. And for each of us, it's different, right? What works for me might not work for somebody else. And that freedom to explore, but also the ability to be able to afford to go to a naturopath, to be able to afford to go to an osteopath, to be able to afford. Not everybody has that luxury. So I've been very blessed that I could pull those. And there were times that we made the choices, right? We're not going on a vacation because I have to go here or I have to go there. So for me, the whole piece and the most important reason why I wanted to take part in this is the shame that I felt for losing the part of me that was woman and felt like I had done it to myself. And that is not mine. That is not mine to carry. It's the shame we are given because we are born women. And in the words Christian Northrup, right? Like the idea that we are women, we deserve this life, we deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, but we have to start with ourselves, right? And that celebration of being a woman. When I work as a clinical social worker, and my population is children and youth. So I have a number of kids who are trans. And I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering what's going on in the world that being a woman isn't acceptable. That I'm not actually a woman, I'm a trans man. And I know that medically, that there are reasons that happens, that you can be in the wrong body, that there can be, Mother Nature does mix up sometimes, things don't go according to plan. But I don't think it is at the level that we're seeing with the confusion around gender. And again, the social construction of gender is a place where I spend a lot of time talking about. It is a social construction that women do this and men do that. But there also is a physiological difference in how we think and who we are in the world. And I think there needs to be more conversations around this whole identity piece. I think for me, again, the most important part was that there's not one answer for anybody. There was not one answer for me. There's not, it doesn't matter how much work you do, how much therapy you have, how much raging at the moon you do. There's still lots of pieces that have to come together to make this. And I think the conversations are important. Years ago, I think it was Peter and not Stephen. Peter Levine wrote the book Waking the Tiger, the traumatized child. But his brother Stephen is a body worker, and I always get them mixed up which one's which. One of them wrote about the lower heart, and he was referring to the womb, that the womb is our other heart. So we have our upper heart, our physical heart, but we also have a heart of the womb. And so at the time, my mentor and I developed a program, and it was for women to embrace the heart of their womb. And so the idea of conversing with our womb and talking about whether it's there, it's still there energetically, even though it's not there physically, right? Or if you still have one, to have a conversation with that lower heart, that physical heart. This is our spiritual heart, but the lower heart of our body. What does it want to say? What are the stories it has to tell? What hardship has it navigated? And so we developed a technique, actually. It's called opening the lower heart, the heart of the womb. And it's a beautiful energy piece about that, trying to have a conversation between our physical heart and our spiritual, emotional heart. And as Carole was talking about her son going through puberty as she was going through menopause, I had the realization when I was away a couple weeks ago with my girls, that as they were babies, they had a mother who was menopausal, who would wake up so angry, I would be gritting my teeth before I even got out of bed. And it was just hormones. But just hormones didn't make it any easier to manage. Having babies crying and fighting and doing all the things babies do. And so I was thinking about that, and a whole lot of, anyway, I told the girls, and my oldest said, well, we turned out all right. And my youngest said, well, speak for yourself. So it's a journey. And I guess for me, the piece is to honor ourselves as we make our way with this journey, and talk to people. If your mother's still alive, if your aunties are still alive, if your sisters, you have sisters, talk to them, because that's the most determinant factor, is genetics, on how you're going to go through menopause. So if you talk to both of your grandmothers, what did they experience? What did they notice? When did they go through menopause? There are women going through menopause much earlier now than used to be. There's so many hormones in our food. Girls are starting menses in grade 3. It's got to be, the estrogen load is so high in the food we're eating. So again, I don't have a simple answer. I don't have any answers, actually, other than finally figured out for me how to navigate the hot flashes and the night sweats. The libido piece, it's all about self-care, and it's taken me this long to figure out what the missing piece was. And it was a good 20 years before I was offered progesterone, when I went to when the medicine shop opened and they actually started with the bioidentical hormones. When they gave me the progesterone, I said I felt like I started smoking again. It was like all of a sudden I had what I've been missing for all those years. I started to sleep. I was able to exercise again. I felt just more hopeful. And so those pieces we don't understand, that each of those hormonal chains, links in the chain, it's not just about the estrogen or the testosterone, it's the progesterone and it's the cortisol, and it's all of those things, the thyroid. For me, having entered the journey so early, there was other physical complications that happened for me, which are common for a woman who loses all of her internal organs. My bladder fell, so I got interstitial cystitis. So I deal with that. Again, I don't eat citrus fruit. I don't drink, usually once in a while, very rarely. But again, it's all the diet pieces that are really important to pay attention to. What's good for my body? What does my body need, want? What's going to nurture it? What's going to take me in the direction I want to go? Doesn't mean sometimes I don't do things that put me back to sleep, because I certainly do. But I think for me, the big piece is that This, like parenting, like marriage, isn't something we talk about, and it needs to be demystified in that it just is. Let's just have a conversation. What works for you? Maybe that'll work for me. If it doesn't work for me, maybe it'll work for my sister, or maybe what worked for your sister will work for me. But we have to, I'm interested in the shame. I don't understand what the origin of that is. But yeah, I think it goes back to being woman, being, that why older men date younger women. They want somebody who's vital, who can have children, who can repopulate. And that's at such a subconscious level. But we carry that. Christian Northrup tells the story in Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. And I actually did when my girls started their menses. We had cheesecake and celebrated. They thought it was so lame. But I was like, no way, we're going to celebrate this. We're going to celebrate you coming into womanhood. So in Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, she was a new OBGYN. I think she's in Connecticut. You'll see her on PBS. So anyway, she's brilliant. She says that if a woman lives to be 42 without heart disease or cancer, she can expect to see her 92nd birthday. And that is The Wisdom of Menopause, her book, The Wisdom of Menopause. So in her first book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which is a brilliant book for any of your daughters, she talks about delivering babies and having the mothers apologize to their husbands if they were birthing a daughter. This was before they had any of the ultrasound stuff, right? So when they were having the daughter, she would apologize. And Christian Northrup said each time she'd feel this rage come up in her. And then she had her first daughter. And she said, it was on my tongue to apologize to my husband who so wanted a boy. She said, I didn't, but it was so instinctual. This, oh, I'm so sorry, it's a girl. As if that's something to apologize for. Anyway, I think that's what we carry. I don't think it's ours. I think it's universal, and I think it needs to be dispelled. The libido piece, yoga, a lot of yin yoga, and a very, very kind husband, partner. Because I really had no interest. The other piece was, for a number of years, I had to give myself shots of testosterone. It was the only thing that worked. So low dose testosterone every 6 weeks was able to give me some libido, because otherwise I would have had none. And you can't stay married for almost 43 years now without having some libido and some intimacy. But Rick was incredibly patient and incredibly kind as I made my way through this. Yeah. All the biopsies, all the surgery, he was always right by my side. So we started dating and I got sick. So, yeah. I guess anybody who'd stick around with a 22-year-old in menopause, yeah, he gets some medals for that. It was pretty awful. And the weight gain, for no reason, right? Didn't change anything, just all of a sudden put on a ton of weight. I'm probably back closer to where I was when I was younger now, finally. And I don't know if, yeah, I think it's just work with Rochelle. And finally, the inflammation has started to reduce enough that it's coming down. I can't think of anything else that I want to say. If you have any questions, you can ask, but that's my biggest thing, is that we shouldn't carry the shame. We don't need to carry that shame. It's not ours. It's it doesn't belong to us. It's a narrative that's outdated and needs to be eliminated.
Thank you, Sandra. I don't know, Holly, did she answer your question there, like about the self-care piece and libido? Is that? Yeah. Okay. So we will take another little short break before I jump in. Thank you so much, Sandra. so many layers of shame. And I'm going to talk about that actually in my little talk about my own. That was really touching what you shared. I didn't know any of that about you. And yeah, we all have our struggles, right? And we have no idea what someone's going through.
Everybody has a story, right? Everybody has a story. And we just need to embrace it. So.
And, that was also an inspiration for this, coming together, is to share our stories. And simply by doing that and by being heard by your community, that's one way of releasing the shame, right?
Yeah, demystifies, right? Yeah.
So so we'll take a little break. If there's any, you continue to reflect in these next 3 minutes. If there's anything you want to say, if there's any comments you want to make about what Sandra said, or give her some love. I see lots of love in the chat for you. We will meet back in 3 minutes I have 8:38. Maybe 3 minutes time. I guess when I put this recording up, those breaks are going to be a little annoying, hey?
Maybe the person listening will also need a pee break.
Yeah, maybe. Or they can just fast forward. Because I don't want to bother editing it. My computer's so slow.
You don't need to worry about that.
Let's see what's going on in the chat. Any questions that you saw?
I wasn't looking, sorry.
Okay, I'll have a look. Aww.
Oh dear, okay.
Yeah, Emery. Yeah. Aww.
My great aunt told me the first 40 were the hardest. when I got married. So. And then I ran into a lady who'd been married 60 years, and she said, don't believe her. It never gets easy.
Mm. Wow, thank you for sharing, Holly, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Desire discrepancy is real. All right, so we'll continue on. It's my turn. Just take note of the time. All right, so I'll open up by talking about this Indigenous Centered Menopause Zoom series, just a few things that I learned that were real eye-openers for me. You mentioned, Carole, some of the things that people do to help with the symptoms with the teas and things like that. I remember there's also, they talked about cedar being used a lot, like burning it, drinking it, can help with symptoms of menopause as well in female reproductive organs. But one thing that I found very interesting that in this Indigenous Centered Menopause Summit was that we have two significant times in our life when we are the most powerful. One is when we're born, we're pure and there's so many possibilities and we're coming from the spirit world. And so we're fresh from that world. And then the second time is when we are menopausal, after menopause. And they said that it's because the body is preparing itself to go back home to the spirit world. And so, and no longer losing the menstrual blood, and it stays in our bodies, it gives us that much more power. And as well as having long hair, it's important because there's power in having longer hair, which I found very interesting. So I'm going to grow my witchy gray hair out. And also wearing black was a symbol of someone in their moon time. And so a woman going through in her monthly cycle, she would wear black so the others would be kinder and gentler with her in the community. I think that that's such a beautiful symbolism, and black is a power color as well. So women in menopause wear black to signify their power, and that people know, I guess, in the community that they've entered that stage of life, which I thought was really interesting as well. Also, they talked a lot about it being shrouded in shame as well, and they couldn't find, I mean, so far the speakers haven't talked about like ceremonies or things that they found out about or could find before colonial settlement. So I'm interested to see if they dig up any of that as the series goes on, because there just is so much shame in our culture around this, and I'm going to talk a lot about this because as I am an embodied intimacy coach, and I'm a sexologist, somatic sexologist, and one of the biggest things that I've learned from my course that I just finished is that shame is everywhere in our culture, and deshamifying. I mean, there are a lot of things that are taboo about female reproductive organs and menstruation and menopause, et cetera. But not only, there's just so much shame embedded everywhere in our culture. It's one of the biggest things that I do with my clients is deshamifying a lot of things. So that's going to come in again later, because I am going to talk about the ceremony that I did with some of my sisters when I entered menopause just last month, actually. So now I'm going to talk about my relationship to my moon cycle. I was later than my friends. I was about 15 or 16 when I started. And I remember going to the toilet on a lunch break from school and looking in my panties, and I saw that red stain, and I knew what it was because my friends had gone through it. And I just was like, oh, fuck. Excuse my sailor mouth, but I was not excited at all about it. I just wadded up some toilet paper. I never told my parents. I did not have a close relationship with my parents. And so I just stole some maxi pads from my mom's closet, and I don't think I ever did. I think once they took me to the doctor because I had really bad cramps, and my stepfather was in the room when the doctor told him why I had the cramps, and it was mortifying. And yeah, I never had any conversations with my parents about it. And I never really, I mean, I had really heavy cycles, like 7-day, 8-day, 9 days of bleeding per month. I was really hormonal, like strong PMS symptoms most of my life. Irritability. It was interesting to hear your take on it, Carole. How the energy changes direction, which is really interesting. Didn't know that. And so things shifted a little bit for me in my moon time when I started using the Diva cup or the menstrual cup, and I got more familiar with my flow, and I started to enjoy knowing more about it and not using the pads any longer. Felt really good for me, like ethically, and I got to know my cycle much better, and that felt like a better connection for me with it. I still didn't love it or even like it. I found it to be a pain in the butt and really annoying, and especially because of the mood swings. I got an app on my phone actually because the mood swings are so bad. Like I would cry, I got depressed, very angry. So the app helped me to see when it was coming. I could also feel, like, once I got more in tune with the Diva cup. And then my son and I had a talk, and I was like, Mommy gets angry. And, you know, just to let him know that it wasn't him, it was what was going on with me with premenstrual syndrome. And then he started saying things like, okay, Mommy, I think are you PMSing? Which is, you know, something that I get aggravated when I hear, but for him, you know, that was really important for him to know if that was the reason, or, you know, that I was being angry with him or irritated. So he was very aware of my cycle. My boyfriend, I remember, got the app on his phone so that he knew when to talk to me about certain things and when not to, which really helped our relationship a lot, actually. But I felt a slave to my hormones. I felt a slave to this. I wish there was a tent. I wish I knew, you know, my community knew when I wore black that they should stay away from me or not engage me in deep, you know, discussions or pick a fight with me or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, that was my relationship. Nothing great. I never loved it or even liked it. And I remember when I was about 44, I said to my boyfriend, I don't know why I still have my moon time. I mean, I'm not going to have a kid. I don't want to have any more children. Like I wish I was menopausal already. And so he joked around, and he because I love ritual and ceremony. And so I got down on my knees, and he like baptized me. He said, now you're going into menopause. And I think that might have started it off because just 3 years later, now I'm fully menopausal, and I'm on the younger end of the spectrum. I know that people can enter menopause at any time, but looking online, it's like the average is about, you know, between 45 and 55 years old, I guess. And so I felt really alone in this process. Like, I asked my friends, most of my friends are younger, I mentioned that before, and I'm not connected with anyone in my family. I'm kind of estranged from my family. And so I didn't have anyone to talk to about this. And I talked to my doctor, and he's like, well, are you experiencing any symptoms? And I wasn't really. And so he was like, there's nothing we need to do. And so it was really like a clinical, I didn't feel like any support or help anywhere. And mind you, I don't spend a lot of time online, so I wasn't really looking. And so I felt very alone and very ashamed about what was going on with my body in particular. Like, I gained weight. I noticed that, you know, things were drooping and sagging, and my skin was different. more wrinkles, gray hair, like a lot more gray hair coming in very quickly, and the texture of the hair. And like I wasn't sleeping. I've been in living on 3, 4, 5 hours sleep very regularly, like these really quick hot flashes coming on very quickly, when you're in the middle of something and you just have to, I had to brace myself, and just as you did, Carole, just like, imagine I'm in a sauna. I love being in a sauna, just like, in order to deal with it when you're driving or when you're in a meeting or and I'm pretty open about things that are going on with me. So I told everyone around me, like, oh, hot flash, hang on a second. But when it happens in the middle of the night, it wakes you up and you have to kick off the covers, and, getting back to sleep is difficult. And yeah, just noticing like the elasticity of my skin is changing. And I started like clumps of hair, just like in the shower. And like when I brush my hair, just like big, hair loss, a lot of hair loss. And I have very thick hair, so at least it's not that noticeable, but I hope that stops at a certain point. Yeah, I'm just looking here to see. Oh, and frozen shoulders. So I went to the doctor about this frozen shoulder thing. Like I couldn't put my jacket on. I couldn't reach, backwards. And my doctor, like I had some tests, MRI, X-ray, and went to physiotherapy. I went to naturopathic doctor, Dr. Rochelle Wilcox is my naturopathic doctor and good friend. And, prescribed different things, but it never went away. I still have it. It's 2-3 years later. It's still tight. I do yoga and stretches and, but I was reading online that because of the drop in hormones, like the progesterone or whatever, and I don't know if it's the estrogen or what it is, because I'm not a doctor, but that is related to joint issues, inflammation and maybe less lubrication. I'm not sure. But anyway, in Japan, it is seen as one of the signs of of menopause, which I think is interesting, actually. And then I started going down this rabbit hole. Other cultures have other menopausal symptoms. For instance, in India, I was reading vision is considered one of the biggest things. And in the Western world, it's the hot flashes are the signal of menopause, right? But not in other cultures, which I found very interesting. Yeah, and the memory loss. And as I said before, like I blame it on menopause, but I often lose track of what I'm saying, or like forget words, forget people's names. The other day that happened to me, like a good friend. And yeah, it's not just like forgetting the words to a song, or like, it's like I was in a meeting hosting a meeting the other day, and I completely lost my train of thought a few times, which was very embarrassing. Yeah, but I've also experienced this strange phenomenon of super smell. So I was reading that can also be a symptom. I've never been offended by smells in my life, like even the worst smells, but now I get nauseated, and it's a particular smell that I can't stand. It's the smell of a rotting banana peel. For whatever reason, it makes me gag now, which I find very interesting. Hopefully that'll go away. So in our culture, we have these archetypes. We go from maiden or virgin into motherhood, and that doesn't necessarily mean you need to be a mother, but like into this like nurturing, more nurturer sort of space, where you're either nurturing your career possibly, or you're nurturing your nieces and nephews, or it's an outward expense of energy. Can we say that? I don't know if that's a word. Anyway, and then we move into this phase of crone, the crone archetype. And these phases are not marked by anything in our culture, really. Like, we don't have the celebration of moving from maiden into motherhood, although I did have a mother blessing. And we certainly don't celebrate menopause. I haven't heard of any celebrate. You know, there are some people, if you look on the internet, I guess, holding ceremonies like I did. But I just felt so alone and so shrouded in shame with what was happening in my body in particular. And that I decided to hold this embracing menopause ceremony. I gathered 10, where were we, 10, Carole? 10 or 12 women. And it was literally in the week that I was 12 months free of my menses. And they came to my home, and I invited them to bring whatever gifts or share whatever wisdom. And we talked about our cycles, and much like this conversation, that's how we started it out. And then one of the biggest pieces for me in that ceremony was I wanted to rid myself of shame. And as I said, like going through being an intimacy coach, that's one of the things that I do with my clients. And so I wanted to do it for myself, and talking about it is wonderful, but also like sharing in a way that's very vulnerable and being witnessed, and the other person holds space for you with empathy, like a me too, or I'm sorry you're going through that. You know, that sounds like it sucks. Oh God, I'm gonna cry. So what I did, oh Jesus, I am gonna cry. Sorry guys. Just let me collect myself for a second. I asked my women friends to hold empathy for me in this way. So just to look at me, I stood in the middle of a circle, and I just asked them to be silent while they heard me talk about my shame, and just look at me with empathy. And so I came into the circle naked, and I talked about the shame that I felt around my body, and like very specific parts of my body and what was happening. And I had my eyes closed, and I remember I turned the lights off because I didn't want you to see me in the light. But we did have some candles going. And yeah, I talked about my cellulite and like my, you know, how my tummy rolls are starting to get bigger, and yeah, and I had my eyes closed for the whole time because I was just so ashamed. And then I got some courage, and I opened my eyes, and I saw my sisters, my friends, just looking at me with such empathy. It really was a powerful thing for me to do that, and to be witnessed and seen in that way and held in that way. And then I asked them, I had some oil, and I asked them to anoint me. So I laid down on the ground, and they put their hands on me with oil, and they said blessings and prayers to me to go through this transition and this journey. And it was the most beautiful thing. Thank you, Carole, for being there. Okay, Jesus, I didn't know I would get so emotional. Sorry about that. It was an emotional thing for me. I mean, I think we were all crying. It was really beautiful. Yeah. And it was one of the most special things I've ever done for myself. And from that, I was like, we need to be talking about this. We need to shed light. We need to open up conversations together, because there is so much shame in our culture. You know, I do a lot of talking about shame and body parts and arousal and sex with my clients, and looking into the history of like the scientific words for female body parts. Like the Latin term is pudendum for the exterior genitalia, and that literally means to be ashamed. And people are learning that word, and it's in their science textbooks. Like it's just, and even if they don't know the root of it, it's like that is what it is, right? And so I think there's just so much stigma and taboo around talking about, around female reproductive organs. Like, why is the liquid blue on those goddamn commercials that we grew up with that they're pouring in the maxi pad? Why? It's not mouthwash. Like, can we be real about it, you know? So anyway, yeah, that's my little rant. Yeah, we are experiencing in our culture as we get older, ageism. That's what it is. You know, we revere youth and beauty and glowing skin and, you know, a certain type of body. And once you're done, you wither up and you're not useful anymore, or you're not beautiful anymore, or you're not, you know. Whereas in other cultures, it's celebrated, it's revered. The elders, I mean, life experience counts for nothing, it seems, in this culture. I want to take that back. I want to reclaim that. Like, all of the life experience that I've been through has taught me something. And I can offer that. And I want to offer that. You know, every wrinkle, as you said, has a story, every laugh line. Like, it's beautiful. And we spend so much money trying to hold on to this false idea of, you know, like coloring our hair, you know, embarrassed of the gray hair, or like, I have a beard now. My mustache is coming in. And like, you know, Botox and fillers and all that stuff, because of the way that it, you know, growing old as a woman is shown or not appreciated. So screw that. One discussion at a time, right? Let's bring back our power. Let's bring, like, we're stepping into a time where we can use all the tools that we've gathered along our paths, right? Let's do it. Let's use it for good. Let's be of service in some way. So anyway, as a result of my ceremony, that was such a powerful thing for me, and, you know, this new line of work, this new business that I have, I've decided to offer the same kind of thing to women, to help go through this process and grieve, you know, what they're leaving behind, and culminating. So it's like a 3-part embodying maturity journey, where we get to cry about, you know, losing that part of ourselves, but then we also get to celebrate what this new stage, I mean, it could be the next half of my life. Like, it's there's so much time beyond 47 that I'm going to be living in menopause. I'm not going to wither up and hide in a corner. Like, I refuse. And I want us to be stepping back into our power, because women need to step up right now. It's needed. We need that female, that divine female, feminine energy stepping up to the plate, because we're fierce and we're powerful. And I want to help women do that. Yay! Okay, another rant over. And just before I finish, I think I'm about done. I was looking up the word of menopause, and it comes from Greek. Men is the root of moon or month. I think month is also has moon in there. And pause is cease or stop. And so it's very literal. But in 1821, it was used for the first time in France, I think. And then in the 1930s, it was described as a deficiency disease. So it started to become seen as a medical thing. And then by the 70s, it was fully medicalized. The medicalization of it was complete. And that is where it lived, in that realm. And that needs to, yeah, exactly. Oh, blimey. Yeah, so we're going to take it back. Let's take it back. Yeah, okay, I'm done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jule. That was amazing.
Yay. So I'm freshly menopausal, so I don't have too much to say. I hope the hot flashes stop soon, though. So I'll just check in the chat. I don't know if you want to, we don't need to take a break. No question. We need to talk about it more. Why such fear? Yeah, yeah. I don't have those answers.
I think it's more of this, the patriarchy and capitalism. If we're so distracted about looking good, being a certain size, wearing a certain designer, we're not paying attention to the fact that we're still earning 75 cents on the dollar. We're still doing the majority of the emotional labor, the majority of the physical labor. We're still the ones who are responsible for everybody except ourselves. And if we bring that up, then we're bitchy, we're cranky, we're, all of those things. But I think that's the conversation. I think it's a distraction. I think it's to keep us asleep.
Yeah,
So
and well, to propel this idea that we're not enough, right? They need us to think that we're not enough and we don't have power. That takes away our power.
Because if we stopped working, if we stopped doing the invisible labor that we do every day, the world would stop. The amount of invisible labor that women do on a daily basis that we don't even acknowledge.
And the amount of money we pour into the aging, like trying to, stop the aging process. I stopped all of it. I'm really trying to embrace it, right? Like, so I'm not coloring my hair. I'm not paying for the expensive serums. It's hard. I want to look young. I do.
You already do.
Exactly.
The glow's from the inside. So
yeah, exactly. It's the attitude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up and being here and hearing us. And just quickly, next month, we're doing it again on May 23rd. We've got some amazing speakers, and Michelle Coleman and Sarah Bailey, who's a naturopathic doctor, as well as Janine Réan, who has a studio in Bedford called Fully Aligned. Yeah, there's some good people coming up. So stay tuned. If you haven't, I don't think any new people have joined, but I'll say it again. If I don't have your email address, you might want to put it in the chat so that I can send you the upcoming link for next month, as well as some links about menopause and the Indigenous Centered Menopause Zoom series that this was inspired by. Yeah. Anything else? Final thoughts?
I was going to suggest if you want to go look at the past episodes for the Indigenous series, YouTube Christy Belcour, she's an amazing artist, and she's put them all up on her YouTube. So if you just follow her, you can go back to listen to the very first episode that they had. And I think there are 5 or 6 of them up already.
Yeah, I'll just write it here. It's called Notokweu Ponkio Kewin. And they have a Facebook page as well that they put all the episodes up on as well. So if you're interested, even right now, you can just type this into the Facebook Ponkio Kewin. And that's Cree, I believe. Notokweu Ponkio Kewin. Yeah. That's Cree for menopause, which their word translates into grandmother is no longer visiting. Which is interesting. All right. Oh, thanks, Trish, my sister. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
I will send you the Zoom link probably tomorrow or the next day. Bye, y'all. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Carole.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Love you.